And with that, welcome you inside this edition of Big Ten Today, presented by Old National Bank. I'm your host, Rick Pizzo. We are just a few days away from the start of the 2024 NCAA baseball tournament, and it does have a Big Ten flavor with 3 teams part of this year's field of 64, including Illinois, Nebraska, and the Indiana Hoosiers. Speaking of Indiana, as we take a look at today's big stat brought to you by Old National, Hoosiers back in the NCAA tournament for the second straight year and the 5th time in the last 7 tourneys. How about that schedule? IU has played 26 quad 1 and 2 games, and the Hoosiers can hit 10 runs or more a dozen times since the beginning of April. This team is top 10 in all of Division I baseball in both doubles and long balls. And as the Hoosiers get set to head to Knoxville for that regional, we're happy to welcome in head coach Jeff Mercer. Jeff, we'll get to that regional in just a bit, but I want to start with the run in Omaha, which obviously helped you guys solidify one of those at-large bids. What'd you like about the way your guys played at the Big Ten tournament?
Well, I thought the first thing that we did was got really good bullpen pitching. You know, our starting pitching was a little bit light from the standpoint that we didn't get the length in the starts that we really wanted, but our bullpen was terrific. They stepped in and they were able to cover those innings, which is huge as you go into the postseason play. You've got to have depth on the mound. Offensively, we were really good the first 2 games and not as much in the last 2, but we played great defense. We took care of the ball. We had a great bullpen. And then offensively, we showed what we can do in those first couple of games. We have to extend those things out and make some better adjustments as we go into the NCAA tournament. But, yeah, I thought we played really well there for the most part, and it always starts on the mound and with our defense.
A nice run that comes up just a little bit short, so you don't get the auto bid, which means you have to wait on Monday watching that selection show. How anxious were you and the team wondering if you were going to be part of this year's field?
Well, I think after the game was over against Nebraska, I was a little bit concerned just with the way we kind of finished the season and having an opportunity to be the automatic qualifier and then not finishing it off. But once I saw the metrics, you see some of the strength of schedule. You mentioned the quad 1 and quad 2 wins. You look at the league RPI. You look at how well we've played the last 6 or 8 weeks. You look at all the teams that we've played. I started to feel a lot better, especially once some of the bid steals that could have happened didn't happen. And across the country, I felt like we had a real opportunity and a real shot. And then you also have to look at the talent of a team. Like, do you have a legitimate opportunity talent-wise to go in and to compete in a regional, to win a regional in advance? And we do. We do have those caliber of players. So I did think going into it that we had a real shot to be a team, both metrically and from an ability standpoint, and the way that we've been playing the last 8 weeks or so. And so I felt a lot better, but I think it's never when you're not the AQ and if you're not a top 20 team, it's always a little bit nerve-wracking when you're sitting there watching, hoping your name pops up.
I guess the good news is you didn't have to wait long because you were part of the very first regional reveal. What was the reaction like from the team when you saw Indiana pop on the screen?
Yeah, it was pure joy, you know, watching those guys jumping up and down, and all of our wives and kids were in, and so watching, you know, my son's 5 turned 6 years shortly, and to see him running around, I think he takes his shirt off and starts swinging it around his head and going bonkers, and you know, it's just there's a lot of joy and a lot of satisfaction and gratification to see guys like Ty Bothwell and Morgan Colopy, your seniors. They get to go back out and play another weekend. Your draft guys get to go back out and play another year, wear that cream and crimson represent. You get to spend another week with those guys. It's just you're waiting for the name. Like you said, we have to wait very long, so there wasn't much anticipation. But to watch the room and to watch your excitement and to see your kids and your family and, you know, coaches' wives hugging them and kissing them, and it's just a really cool moment to watch all of the work and all of the investment from so many people come to fulfillment all in one moment. It's a really cool moment.
One of 3 Big Ten teams in this field. Obviously, Nebraska gets the AQ, but Illinois joins you as an at-large. As a Big Ten baseball coach, how nice is it to see the league getting a little bit of respect on Selection Monday from the committee?
It was a big deal. It's a big deal. You know, the Big Ten's a good baseball conference. I think this year we were 4th in the country in RPI. And that's a huge component of as we continue to advance the program, or I'm sorry, the conference, especially with the West Coast schools joining. is that we do have a footprint. We do have a hold in the postseason and representation because we are the investment financially, the investment facilities, the recruiting, all of those things have continued to grow and improve over the last 5 to 10 years. And so to see that bore out on the selection show was a big deal. And to see those guys in the NCAA tournament's a big deal. Now we need to go. We need to play well. We need to represent the league at a high level. We need to compete at a high level. We need to advance. We need teams that not just go to regionals, but as a conference, we need to advance into super regionals and beyond. We need to go back to the World Series as a league. And so it's a big deal to have that representation is the respect of the national audience. And now we need to go and uphold that. And we need to go and play at a high level, all of us, not only this year, but into the future. And so I think it's a statement for the entire league and then hopefully for the future success to come as well.
Jeff, I know you open against Southern Miss on Friday afternoon, a team that a lot of Big Ten baseball fans may not know a lot about, but a really solid team. I believe they have the longest streak in the country of at least 40 wins in consecutive seasons. What should we know about your first opponent?
Incredibly tough, very fundamental, high batting average, a lot of doubles. The starter they're going to throw is excellent, a great changeup. They're just tough, and a lot of people think toughness is hollering and yelling and those things. And toughness is executing your plan in the game and staying committed to it and not coming off of it. And so those guys are going to be incredibly tough. They're talented. They're tough. They're very well coached, as you said. Their success speaks for itself, and they're going to be prepared to kick your butt. And so you're not just going to go in and out talent these teams. You're not going to go in and show up and just, hey, you have some guys that throw 95 and you have some draft picks on your team and they don't care. So do they. And so every team they play against is of that caliber and of that ability. And so you have to go in and you have to compete to the game and you have to stay to your plan and execute your plan at a high level or they're going to run you off the field. And so that's the message to the guys. And I would say that to the community of folks that are going to watch these games is, all these teams are great. All these teams are talented, but these teams are tough. And they stay dedicated. They stay true to their plan. They don't come off of it.
Jeff, you mentioned the bullpen usage. I'm curious, as you head into a regional setting, you rotated the starters late in the year, and that bullpen did get an awful lot of use late in the year and in the Big Ten tournament. You're willing to use that bullpen for multiple innings. Yeah. What's the strategy in terms of rotation and using the pen in a regional setting?
Well, when you're looking at, for us, the last month or 6 weeks, every game is essentially a playoff game. And so you got to go to the next guy as fast as you need him. And so when you start to look at your starters, you're your starter of your inning, and you're the closer of your inning. And as soon as you're out of gas, you got to go to the next guy. And so that's helped us with our bullpen is, hey, man, we just need you to finish this inning. And if once you're out of gas, you're out of gas, and we'll go to the next one. And Coach Glantz done a great job of building a bullpen that has firepower. We have real stuff. We've got guys that are mid to upper 90s coming out of the pen at times. And so when you've got those guys and you feel good about them, you trust them, we just need you to give us, can you give us 3 to 5 innings in a start? And as soon as you start to lose it, we're going to the next guy, and you break it up. And you chop games up that way, but it also allows you to get those guys back up again. If I've only gone 3 or 4 innings, I could potentially come back later in the tournament, later in the weekend, and that's helped us as well. So, we would like Bothwell and Foley to give us length, but if they can't, no problem. You got Reisdorf and Naden Decker-Petty and Jacob Vogel and Drew Burr, and you've got these guys who are of equal caliber and are ready to come in and kind of be the fireman and put fires out and finish the inning and give us a chance to stay in ball games. So we're really fortunate to have the bullpen that we do. It's really carried us over the last 6 weeks or so.
All right, finally, Jeff, I'm going to finish with what's probably the hardest question to answer. What exactly will it take for you guys to get out of a regional that does include not just Southern Miss, but also the #1 team in the country in Tennessee?
Well, you got to be tough, and I know it's cliche, but you have to stay committed to your game plan. If it's a 2-1 changeup and the plan's to take a changeup, you got to take it. You can't roll over. You can't hit double play balls. You're going to have to execute pitches. You're going to have to get fastballs in when they're called in. You can't leave them over the plate. You have to execute the plan. You have to stay emotionally under control. You can play with emotion, but you can't play emotionally. You got to compete to the best of your abilities, but also controlling yourself and not losing focus in the foundational, fundamental aspects of the game. And then we're going to have to play really high defense, a high level of defense, and you have to hit with guys in scoring position. You got to take care of the ball. You can't leave guys on base. If you do those things, you're going to have a real chance to compete in this. And you got to find your way to Saturday or Sunday with a chance to win it. And someone's going to have to step up. You're going to have a real performance. You know, you can have all the best coaching in the world, but it's the Johnnies and Joes, man. It's the guys on the field. It's the guys that are playing the games, and someone's going to have a big day, or they're on the mound or offensively, and they're going to have to find a way to carry you over the finish line there. And if you do those things, you have a chance. And the reality is we're talented enough. We're capable. We have the guys that can do it. You just have to go. You have to go make it happen at this point.
And we look forward to watching Indiana opening up against Southern Miss. Jeff Mercer, we truly appreciate the time. Safe travels down to Knoxville, and best of luck this weekend.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Have an awesome day.
There was some concern after the Big Ten tournament that Nebraska, the AQ, which also had the league's highest RPI, could be the only Big Ten team to get into the tournament. The committee didn't see it that way, awarding at-large bids to both Illinois and Indiana, as the Big Ten has 3 squads in the field of 64 in this week's NCAA baseball tournament. First pitch on Friday. Mike Huff, Big Ten Network baseball analyst, joining us with much more. Mike, let's start there. Quickly, the committee giving a little bit of respect to the league, not just 1 at-large, but 2 at-large, giving the conference 3 teams inside this year's NCAA tournament.
Well, this is incredibly refreshing, Rick. I mean, we've seen so many years in the past where a Big Ten team has been in the 40s, low 40s RPI, 40-plus wins, and got left out of the tournament. So I think we'll be talking about one of our matchups, which might have helped the committee say, yes, some of these teams in the Big Ten are deserving, even though their RPI might not be where we want to see it. Very excited. Think for Illinois, the fact that they won the regular season was huge. The fact that Indiana really challenged itself and it was playing some great baseball toward the end, challenged itself early, and then made this great run into the Big Ten before getting stopped on Saturday by an incredibly hot Nebraska team that turned around and won the championship on Sunday. So it's very nice, very refreshing, and for all 3 teams, much earned and much deserved.
You mentioned Illinois by name, the regular season champ. You also mentioned regular season rematches taking place in the NCAA tournament. Illinois has won against Indiana State in their opener in the Lexington Regional. Now, Illinois and Indiana State actually played twice during the course of the year. 7-6, Indiana State won the first, but then Illinois came back and scored 21 runs in the second matchup. How do we anticipate matchup number 3 going between these teams?
Well, both team won on their home turf. Now, 7-6, like you said, versus 11-21, a little bit different. And I think Illinois was playing so good down the stretch. You know, they ran into an incredibly hot Penn State team, but this is now neutral. Illinois has to be feeling good about the fact that it won its regular season. It went into the Big Ten and faced the hottest team in Penn State. And if not for Penn State, they probably would have been in the finals. So I really like where this is trending for Illinois. And I think those bats, where we saw a week that they only hit 0 home runs, refuse to think that's going to happen again. I think the bats will wake up, and I think there's a really good probability they take that first one against Indiana State.
From the regular season champ, Illinois, to the Big Ten tournament champ, Nebraska. First team in nearly 2 decades to come out of the losers bracket in Omaha, have to play all week long. They continue to find a way. You talk about a team right now, Michael, that has both elements in the hitting and pitching going. It's not going to be easy. Open up against an SEC team in Florida, but the Huskers are as hot as anybody right now.
Well, and we saw a Will Walsh, your number 4 starter, be able to go complete games. So this isn't just the Brett Sears, Matt McConaughey show. This isn't, Jackson Brockett, who pitched a no-hitter and pitched a great championship game on Sunday through 8 innings. This is now a 4-deep team, and we saw Christo come out of the bullpen. We've seen the bats, especially Gabe Swanson, all of a sudden get hot. So I love the fact that this team seems to be clicking on all cylinders. And when you look at them on paper, especially their hitters, there's nothing that really scares you, which to me, being that role player, I love. I think this is a Florida team that, again, comes in 28-27, comes in 13-17 in their conference, i.e. Maryland. If you could have gotten into the Big Ten tournament, I think there was a chance you might have gotten an at-large as well. But this is a team in Florida that has one incredible player in Jack Caglianone, that pitches and positional player. We saw a few of those at Michigan. But with Nebraska playing the way it is, I really like the way this is setting up. And I think they, of the three Big Ten teams, probably has the best chance to come out of their region.
Because they don't have to deal with either the number 1 or number 2 overall seed. Illinois has to deal with the number 2 overall seed in Kentucky. Indiana hopes they have to deal with the number 1 overall seed in Tennessee. But first, they have to get past Southern Miss, a really quality baseball team. We already heard Jeff Mercer talk about what he thinks his team will be facing. From your perspective, Mike, what does Indiana have to deal with on Friday?
I think they're not allowed to make any mistakes. I think when there's a leadoff double, they've got to get that guy over. When they're the guy in third with less than 2 outs, they have to get him in. We've seen Indiana at times execute and play great baseball. And very much like Nebraska, they have 9 guys that can do some damage, and not home run damage. Just executing smart type of baseball players that I need to see an Indiana team score 3, 4, 5 times throughout the course of their games. And again, I like the way their pitching staff. I think Ty Bothwell can do well, and if he pitches the way he's capable of, can get by a Southern Mississippi. And then I like Connor Foley being your number 2 starter with how he has demonstrated he can throw. So we won't look too far ahead, but I think for Indiana, if there's that solid execution, if the 1 through 9 just do their jobs and don't try to do too much, don't try to catch up, hit too many home runs, I think there's a really good chance that these guys can win that first matchup as well.
All right, Mike, don't go anywhere. It is time for one quick break. My guy, Michael Huff, just told you he likes Nebraska's chances to advance out of the Stillwater Regional. The Big Ten tournament champ Huskers are the 2 seed. They open against Florida. The host and number 1 seed in this region is Oklahoma State. The aforementioned Mike Huff now back with us. Mike, why do you like Nebraska not just to get past Florida in that first game, but potentially to advance to next weekend's Super Regional?
Well, I think about Oklahoma State as a ball club that not necessarily, they got a couple guys that have hit 20 home runs, but it's not their offense that really has driven them this year. It's their pitching. Team ERA just over 4. So if I'm in Illinois that relies on the long ball, might be a little bit challenging. Nebraska doesn't. They hit line drives where the ball is pitched. So for that reason, I think regardless of who Oklahoma State puts on the mound, I think the Nebraska hitters have a chance to get those gaps down the line opposite field and can score some runs and upset Oklahoma State.
Nebraska 3 Eastern on Friday against Florida. Oklahoma State to follow. The winners match up against each other on Saturday. As we move from the Knoxville or from the Stillwater Regional to the Knoxville Regional, there you see Tennessee, number 1 in the country. Indiana hopes to have a shot at the Vols. To get there, they will have to beat Southern Miss. It is a tough road, Mike, but what is the path for Indiana to advance out of this regional?
This is the challenging one. You think about Tennessee being 35-3 at home. That in itself is a little bit daunting. So for Indiana, I think if they get past Southern Miss, they're going to have a lot of confidence. Connor Foley will be going on Saturday. And again, I think if they play that small ball, if they can work the field, if again, they have some bats, if Devin Taylor can stay hot, if some of these veteran players like a Cerny or a Tibbetts can just come through, I think this is a ball club that, a little bit like Nebraska, doesn't necessarily rely just on the 3-run homer. I think if they use the whole field and they execute, they could surprise someone. Tennessee also has lost a couple games against some teams that aren't nationally ranked. So there's always a way, if you can catch them on a down day, that you can beat them.
They'll also need a guy like Carter Matheson, who is part of the All-Big Ten tournament team, to keep playing at a super high level. Third and final regional that the Big Ten is worried about in the baseball tournament, Lexington. Kentucky's the host, the number 1 seed there, the number 2 overall. They will likely be waiting on Saturday for Illinois. If the Illini can get past Indiana State, as we've mentioned, this is the 3rd meeting between these teams. Mike, how does the Illini not just get past the Sycamores, but also beat Kentucky in advance to the Supers?
They turn on the fans and make sure the wind is blowing out. Like, we need to see that Illinois team that we saw all year. The 5 guys that hit 10-plus home runs. The fact that you have 3 others that were 7, 8, or 9. Again, a Kentucky team that also has lost to Kennesaw State 2 out of 3, lost to Samford. So this is a club that not necessarily surprises you with just 1 or 2 players. They have a nice balance, 8 guys with over 33 RBIs. So a nice balanced lineup. But if we can get that wind blowing out, we can get those big bats from Illinois swinging the way they can, and we get a bunch of 2 or 3 run homers, I think that's what's going to really vault Illinois through that region.
See if Dan Hartlib can make a call to Mother Nature, ask for a little bit of a favor. Games start on Friday. For Mike Huff, from Rick Pizzo, thanks for hanging out here on this edition of Big Ten Today.